Ngozi the orphan. Treated like a servant, her fate will shock you. The slap came before the question. It landed hard across Ngozi's left cheek, sending her stumbling into the kitchen wall, her tray of ebi crashing to the floor in a mess of white paste and scattered plates. The sound rang through the entire house. The children in the sitting room went quiet. Even the generator outside seemed to pause. "You useless girl." Auntie Chioma's voice sliced through the silence like a hot knife. "How many times have I told you to serve my husband's food before it gets cold? How many times?" Ngozi did not cry. She had learned long ago that crying only made things worse with Auntie Chioma. She pressed her palm against her cheek, bent down slowly, and began picking up the scattered plates from the floor. Leave it there and go and fetch more water from the borehole. The tank is empty because of your laziness. Go, now, before I show you what I am capable of." Ngozi was 14 years old. She was thin, dark-skinned, with wide, quietly observant eyes that missed nothing. She wore a faded Ankara blouse 2 sizes too big for her and a wrapper tied low around her waist that had once been green but had washed into something closer to gray. On her neck, barely visible beneath the collar of her blouse, hung a small gold necklace with a tiny pendant shaped like a bird in flight. It was the only thing she owned that no one had taken from her yet. She picked up the empty jerry cans by the door, hoisted them onto her head without a word, and walked out into the blazing afternoon sun of Onitsha. The compound of the Okafor household was large but cluttered. 3 zinc-roofed buildings formed a loose square around a dusty courtyard. Auntie Chioma and her husband Uncle Emeka lived in the main building. 2 other families lived in the Face Me I Face You apartments at the back. Everyone in that compound knew Ngozi. Everyone had watched her grow from the 8-year-old girl who had arrived one rainy evening with nothing but a small polythene bag to the teenager she was now. They called her the orphan. Not unkindly, most of them. Just matter-of-factly, the way you call a stray dog the stray dog. It was simply what she was. Or what everyone believed she was. At the borehole 3 streets away, Ngozi set down her jerry cans and waited her turn. The afternoon queue was long. Women with babies tied to their backs, young boys sent by their mothers, a few elderly men who moved slowly and took their time. Ngozi did not mind the wait. These minutes at the borehole were often the only peaceful ones in her day. She was filling the second jerry can when she noticed the man. He was standing across the road, partly in the shade of a palm tree, wearing a simple kaftan and holding a small notebook. He was watching the borehole, watching the people, or perhaps watching her specifically. She could not be sure. When their eyes met briefly, he looked down at his notebook and wrote something. Ngozi thought nothing more of it. Strange men were always around in Onitsha. She hoisted her jerry cans and walked back to Auntie Chioma's house. That evening she served dinner, washed the dishes, swept the compound, and ironed Uncle Emeka's shirts for the week. She did all of this without being asked and without complaint. Not because she was happy, but because she had long understood that the price of hesitation in this house was pain, and the price of complaint was worse. She slept on a thin foam in the kitchen, tucked between the gas cooker and the wall where the cockroaches were fewer than in the passageway. She lay on her back and stared at the cracked ceiling and touched the little bird pendant at her throat as she always did before she closed her eyes. She did not know where the necklace had come from. Auntie Chioma had told her it was junk. Something that had been around her neck when she arrived. Ngozi had asked once, when she was younger and still foolish enough to ask questions, where she had come from before she arrived at this house. Auntie Chioma had looked at her for a long moment and said, "Your mother died. Your father is unknown. You have nobody. That is why I, who owe you nothing, have taken you in and given you food and shelter. If not for me, the street would have swallowed you." That was the whole story, and Ngozi had accepted it the way you accept a wound that will not close. You stop pressing it and you learn to live around it. But sometimes in those quiet moments before sleep, she wondered. The next morning, Auntie Chioma's eldest daughter Adiz came home from university in Enugu. The house changed when Adiz arrived. There was laughter, there was noise, Auntie Chioma smiled for the first time in days, and the food was richer. Ngozi cooked jollof rice, fried plantain, and pepper soup. She moved through the kitchen like a shadow, ensuring everything was perfect. "Ngozi." Adiz called from the sitting room, and Ngozi appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Adiz was looking at her phone. "Bring me cold water from the fridge." Ngozi brought it without a word. Adiz looked up as she took the glass. She looked at Ngozi for a moment, then looked away again, then looked back. "What is that on your neck?" she asked. "Nothing," Ngozi said. "A necklace." "Let me see it." Ngozi hesitated, then stepped forward and pulled the necklace out from under her blouse. Adiz leaned forward to look at it. The pendant was small. A bird with its wings spread, cast in gold, with a tiny marking on the underside that was too small to read without effort. Adiz said nothing for a moment. Then she said, "Where did you get this?" "I have always had it." Adiz said nothing more. But Ngozi noticed that she took out her phone and photographed the necklace before she looked away. Later that night, Ngozi heard Adiz and her mother speaking in low, urgent voices behind the closed bedroom door. She did not hear the words, but she heard the tone. It was the tone of a conversation that has stakes. She went back to her foam mattress and held the necklace against her chest and fell asleep. 2 days later, Uncle Emeka announced that Ngozi had stolen money from his wallet. She was in the kitchen when he called her into the sitting room. He was seated in his large cushioned chair with his arms folded, and Auntie Chioma stood beside him with the particular expression she wore when she had already decided how the afternoon would end. Both of Auntie Chioma's sons, Chukwemeka and Tabena, stood near the door watching with bright, cruel eyes. 3,000 naira is missing from my wallet, Uncle Emeka said. I kept my wallet on the table last night. You were the last person in this room. I did not take anything, Ngozi said. Her voice was calm. It had learned to be calm even when her heart was hammering. Then where is the money? I do not know, sir. Auntie Chioma stepped forward. Are you calling my husband a liar? Are you standing in my house, eating my food, wearing clothes I bought for you, and calling my husband a liar? I'm not calling anyone a liar. I am only saying I did not take the money. The slap came again, harder than the one 2 days before. Ngozi's head snapped sideways. Tabena laughed. Chukwemeka looked at the floor. You will go and find that money, Auntie Chioma said, or I will hand you over to the police. I've been patient with you too long. You are a thief and a burden, and I do not know why God punished me with you. Ngozi stood straight. She did not put her hand to her cheek. She looked at Auntie Chioma with those quiet, observant eyes and said nothing. What was there to say? The sentence had already been passed. The truth was irrelevant here. She went back to the kitchen. But something was different now. Something had shifted. Because while she stood in that sitting room being accused of something she had not done, she had seen something. Through the window behind Uncle Emeka's chair, across the street, partially hidden behind a parked Danfo bus, was the same man from the borehole. The man with the notebook. He was watching the house. That night, she heard Auntie Chioma on the phone. The kitchen wall was thin. I am telling you, that girl has to go. She is getting too old and people are starting to ask questions. Yes, I know. Just handle it on your end. Make the arrangements. Yes, the necklace is still with her. Fine. But she must be out of this house before the end of the month. Ngozi lay very still on her foam mattress and breathed slowly. She did not understand all of what she had heard. But she understood enough. She was going to be removed. And whatever the necklace meant, it was connected to the reason why. She wrapped her fingers around the pendant and held it like a lifeline. At 7 the next morning, before Auntie Chioma was awake, Ngozi slipped out to fetch water as she always did. But this time at the borehole, she stood very still and looked directly at the spot where the man usually stood. He was there. She walked toward him. He did not move when he saw her coming. He closed his notebook and stood straight. He was older than she had first thought. Perhaps 50. He had a calm, serious face with lines around his eyes that came from grief rather than laughter. He wore the same simple kaftan. You have been watching me, she said. He looked at her for a long moment. Yes, he said. Why? He reached into the breast pocket of his kaftan and produced a small laminated card. It identified him as Barrister Emeka Nwosu, Senior Partner, Nwosu and Associates, Abuja, an investigator. My name is Emeka Nwosu, he said. I have been hired to find someone. I have reason to believe you are that person. Ngozi looked at the card, then at him. Who hired you? A man named Chukwudi Ease. He is a retired civil servant from Aka. 14 years ago, his daughter was taken from a hospital where she had been admitted for treatment. She was 6 months old. Her name was Adaora. The borehole pumped water steadily. A woman behind Ngozi was telling her to move. Ngozi did not move. Why do you think I am this person? She said. The barrister's eyes went to her neck. The necklace, he said quietly. It belongs to a set. The other piece is with Mr. Ease. He had the matching piece engraved for his daughter before she was admitted. The pendant is a bird. It was a family symbol. He has been looking for 14 years. Everything around Ngozi seemed to become very still. The noise of the street, the pumping of the borehole, the woman behind her who was still complaining, all of it receded. She heard only the pounding of her own blood. I have always had this necklace, she said slowly. Since before I came to that house. I know, the barrister said. That is why I am here. He took out a photograph from his notebook. A man in his 60s with a wide, kind face and eyes that were shaped just like hers. Beside him was an empty chair and a table with a photograph of a baby placed carefully on it, as if the chair's absent occupant were somehow still present at the table. Ngozi looked at the photograph for a very long time. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wet, but her voice did not shake. Tell me everything, she said. Barrister Ngozi spoke quickly and quietly. 14 years ago, a young couple, Chukwudi and Obiageli Ease, had taken their infant daughter Adaora to St. Jude's private hospital in Awka after she developed a high fever. The baby had been admitted, stabilized, and was recovering. On the third night she vanished. The cot was empty. The duty nurse had been sedated with something in her tea. Security footage showed a woman leaving the hospital through a side exit with a bundle in her arms. The footage was grainy and the woman was not identified. Obiageli Ease had never recovered from the loss. She died 4 years later, her family said, of a grief she could not eat or sleep away. Chukwudi Ease had spent the intervening years and a significant portion of his savings hiring investigators, following leads, filing police reports that went nowhere. Barrister Ngozi was the latest and, the barrister said carefully, he believed the most promising. The lead had come through a hospital worker who had retired and, nearing the end of her life, had begun to talk. She mentioned a woman she had seen that night. A woman she recognized but had been afraid to name. A woman she called Chioma. The same Auntie Chioma who had raised Ngozi. Ngozi pressed her hand over her mouth. Not in shock. In the strange, sickening sensation of a truth you have always half known arriving at last in full. She must have been paid, Barrister Ngozi said. Or she may have acted on her own for reasons we do not yet know. The investigation is ongoing. She said I was an orphan, Ngozi said. You are not an orphan. Those 4 words went through her like electricity. Your father is alive, the barrister said. He is in Awka. He has never stopped looking. The next 3 days were the most difficult of Ngozi's life, and they were also, in some profound way, the beginning of the only life she had ever been promised. Barrister Ngozi told her she must not reveal what she knew. Not yet. He needed 2 more days to complete the documentation, to contact the relevant authorities, and to ensure that when the time came, there was no way for Auntie Chioma to deny what had been done or to destroy evidence. Ngozi went back to the compound. She cooked. She cleaned. She swept the courtyard and ironed the shirts and fetched the water. She did all of this with the knowledge sitting inside her like a coal, warm and burning slowly. On the second night, Auntie Chioma called her into the sitting room after dinner. Uncle Emeka was not home. Adiz was in her room. It was just the 2 of them. Ngozi, Auntie Chioma said. Her voice was different. Softer than usual. Ngozi had learned over the years that this voice was more dangerous than the hard one. You're a good girl. You know that I have always cared for you. Ngozi said nothing. I have been thinking. You're growing up now. It is time for you to have a better life. I have arranged for you to go and work for a family in Lagos. A very good family. They will pay you well and give you a room. When? Ngozi asked. This weekend. Ngozi looked at her. What kind of work? Domestic work. Like what you do here, but they will pay you. Ngozi looked at the woman who had slapped her, starved her, accused her, and kept her from the truth of who she was for 8 years. She looked at her with those quiet, observant eyes. And she said very calmly, Auntie, have I ever done anything wrong to you? Something moved across Auntie Chioma's face. Something that might have been briefly shame. It did not stay long. Don't be foolish, Auntie Chioma said. This is a good opportunity. Yes, Auntie, Ngozi said. And she went back to her foam mattress. She sent a message to Barrister Nwosu's number. They are moving me this weekend. Please hurry. The reply came back within an hour. We will be there tomorrow morning. Be ready. She barely slept that night. She lay on her back with her hand on the necklace and she thought about the man in the photograph with the kind face and the empty chair beside him. She thought about what it would mean to have a name that was truly hers. To have a history. To have a father who had spent 14 years looking for her. She thought about what it meant that all this time she had not been lost. She had been hidden. There is a difference between being lost and being hidden. One implies carelessness. The other implies crime. At 9 the next morning, 2 vehicles pulled into the courtyard of the Okafor compound. The first was a black Toyota Camry. The second was a gray police van. Barrister Nwosu stepped out of the Camry with 2 colleagues. 4 uniformed police officers stepped out of the van. Auntie Chioma came out of the main building in her house clothes, a wrapper tied high under her arms, looking confused and then quickly looking afraid. "What is this? What is happening here?" she demanded. Barrister Ngozi did not raise his voice. He had the unhurried manner of a man who had prepared very well. "Madam," he said, "my name is Barrister Emeka Ngozi. I have here a warrant for your arrest in connection with the abduction of Adaora Chukwudi from St. Jude's Private Hospital, Awka, 14 years ago. I also have here documentation including DNA evidence obtained from samples submitted voluntarily by the subject and her biological father, confirming her identity as the said Adaora Ease." He paused. "You know her as Ngozi." The compound had begun to fill with people. The other families, neighbors, passers-by who had seen the police van. Uncle Emeka had appeared in the doorway of the main building, shirt half-buttoned, staring. Adiz stood behind him with both hands over her mouth. Auntie Chioma said nothing for a long moment. Then she said, "This is nonsense. This girl is nobody. She came here as an orphan. I took her in out of the kindness of my heart." "Madam." Barrister Nwosu's voice was firm and final. "We have the DNA results. We have the testimony of the nurse. We have security footage that has been forensically enhanced. And we have the necklace, which matches the piece in the possession of her biological father. I would advise you not to say anything further without legal representation." The police officers moved forward. Auntie Chioma looked at Ngozi. It was a long look. And it was rage and fear, and something else that Ngozi could not name but would spend years afterward trying to understand. Then Auntie Chioma looked away, and the officer took her arm, and she went without fighting, her slippered feet dragging slightly on the red dust of the compound. Ngozi stood in the middle of the courtyard and watched her go. She felt many things in that moment. Relief was there, certainly. Justice arriving with the peculiar weight it always carries. But beneath both of these was something quieter and more complicated. Something that had no simple name. 8 years of her life had been lived in this compound. 8 years of pain, yes, but also 8 years of learning how to be strong in the way that only people who have been given no choice become strong. That did not simply dissolve because truth had arrived. She touched the necklace at her throat. Barrister Nwosu came and stood beside her. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Where are we going?" "Awka," he said. "Your father is waiting." The drive to Awka took 2 hours. Ngozi sat in the back of the Camry with the window down, watching Anambra pass in flashes of red soil and green vegetation and the particular golden light of late morning. She had never left Onitsha before. Or if she had, she did not remember it. They pulled into a quiet residential street in Awka and stopped in front of a modest bungalow with a well-kept garden. There were roses. She had not expected roses. The front door opened before the car stopped moving. He was older than the photograph. He had grown thinner and his hair had gone gray, but the eyes were exactly the same. What? Observant. Her eyes reflected back at her from an older face. Chukwudi walked toward the car with the careful, disbelieving steps of a man who has hoped for so long that he can no longer trust what he is seeing. Ngozi stepped out of the car. They stood for a moment in the morning light, 3 feet apart, just looking. Then he said in a voice that was barely a whisper, "Adaora." And something in Ngozi, something that had been clenched tight since before she could remember, finally, slowly let go. She did not run to him. She walked. And he walked to her. And they stood in his garden with the roses and the morning light and held each other with the particular desperation of people recovering something they were never supposed to lose. She cried. She had not cried in years. It came out of her in waves, ugly and raw and necessary, and his hand on the back of her head did not flinch and did not let go. In the weeks that followed, the story spread the way such stories spread in Nigeria. Through WhatsApp groups and neighborhood gossip and evening news segments that reduced the whole of Ngozi's suffering and survival to a 90-second report. Auntie Chioma was charged and remanded in custody pending trial. Uncle Emeka cooperated with investigators and was released, though questions remained about what he had known and when. Adiz, it turned out, had suspected something for years. The photograph of the necklace she had taken had been sent to her mother, not to the police, and that choice would follow her for a long time. Ngozi, who had always known herself only as Ngozi, began slowly to learn to answer to Adaora. Was not easy. A name is not just a label. It is the shape a person has been given in the world. She kept both names eventually, Adaora Ngozi. The name she was born with and the one she had survived under. Both were hers. Her father enrolled her in school. She was behind her age mates and did not care. She studied with a ferocity that surprised her teachers and did not surprise her father, who recognized in her the same stubbornness that had kept him searching for 14 years. She made friends slowly, the way people make friends when they have learned not to trust quickly. But she made them. Some evenings, she and her father sat in the garden with the roses and talked. Sometimes about her mother, who she would never know except through his stories. Sometimes about the years in Onitsha, which she described without self-pity and which he listened to with quiet, helpless grief. Sometimes they said nothing at all. Just sat together in the way of people who have found each other and are still getting used to the miracle of it. She kept the necklace. She would always keep it, because it had kept her. There is a kind of person that suffering tries to make bitter. The kind of bitterness that curls inward and poisons everything, that turns pain into a reason to harm others, to close the world out, to stop believing in the possibility of good. Ngozi had seen this kind of bitterness in others. She had felt it knocking at her own door on the worst nights in that kitchen in Onitsha. She had not let it in. That was, she would come to understand, perhaps the most important thing she had ever done. More important than surviving the hunger or the slaps or the accusations. The choice to remain open. To keep the part of herself that was soft and curious and capable of wonder alive through all of it, the way a plant keeps one green shoot alive through a long dry season. 2 years after her return, she began visiting a shelter in Akka that housed children in difficult situations. She did not go there to perform good deeds for the cameras. She went quietly with food and books and time. She sat with the children and listened to them the way the barrister had once listened to her, with full attention and without rushing toward resolution. One afternoon, a small girl with braided hair and downcast eyes sat beside Ngozi on a bench in the shelter's courtyard and said without looking up, "Do you think anybody is looking for me?" Ngozi looked at her for a long moment. "I think," she said carefully, "that some people are looked for and some people are found. And some people," she said, touching the necklace at her throat, "find themselves." The girl looked up. Ngozi smiled at her. The afternoon sun fell across the courtyard in long golden rectangles, warm and generous and indifferent to all the suffering it illuminated, which is both the cruelty and the mercy of light. Ngozi held the girl's hand and they sat together in the warmth of it. Some stories begin with a slap and end with a garden and roses and a father who never stopped looking. Some stories begin with a stolen child and end with a young woman who turned what was stolen from her into something she gave away freely to others. This is one of those stories. And it is true in the way that the most important things are always true. Not because every detail happened exactly this way, but because somewhere, it is always happening. A child is always waiting to be found. A father is always searching. A necklace is always holding a secret that the world is not yet ready to know. Pay attention. The miracle is often quieter than you expect. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of something or someone, if it made you feel even for a moment the weight of what it means to survive and to love and to find your way back to where you belong, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a story. And drop a comment below. Tell me, what part of Ngozi's story stayed with you the most? Was it the moment she walked toward the man at the borehole, choosing to trust when she had every reason not to? Was it the moment her father said her name? I want to know, because your responses remind me why these stories matter. See you in the next one.